welcome back. I'm Joe Phillips. I'm the founder of Pure Management Alliance. And in this week's conversation, I'm happy to have my friend and colleague, Russ Parker. So, Russ, welcome to this webinar. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in project management and how you got involved with Pure?
Yeah, so Russ Parker, and I got into project management through my wife, actually. So when I first met her and we were dating, and it's before we got married, she started working on project management for
Mm,
her PMP.
right.
And she was studying, and as we all know, we got flashcards, we got the whole 9 yards. We have a study buddy. She was using me as a study buddy. And while I'm going through, I'm like, this is what I do in the military. Like
Yeah.
these things match. We're calling it different stuff. And so it kind of got the itch going then. I didn't actually get into it though until about 5 years later when I was getting ready to get out of the Marine Corps and had to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up. And so I started looking at project management again. I took a Scrum Master course. That Scrum Master kind of it got the itch going. Did the PMP courses. I say courses because I took a few of them.
Sure.
And sure enough, got the PMP. And then I got a what we call a skill bridge coming out of the military, where I got to work as a project manager. So
That's
from
great.
there, it's been history.
That's great. And you're over in Jacksonville, Florida, right? Or St.
Yeah,
Augustine?
St. Augustine. Yep. Just
Right.
moved down here over the summer. So
And where were
loving
you
it down
before?
here.
You were,
I was up in New Jersey for a small minute.
yeah,
So got out of the military, went up to New Jersey. We wanted to
yeah.
be closer to my wife's family. And in turn, we did one winter. So we lived in the desert for 6 straight years. We were
Yeah,
over in 29 Palms, California, the
yeah.
country of Bahrain, Las Vegas, moved to New Jersey, did one winter, and we're like, no, we're out of
Yeah.
here. So
I completely understand. I'm on the other coast. I'm just over in Sarasota. And
yeah,
I lived in Chicago for a number of years and then Indianapolis. And I'm like, I've had it. Why am I here? No sunshine, the cold. I'm just way too delicate for that cold weather.
yeah, it's just once you get out of it, you're just like, don't
Yeah,
want to do. Plus, with two little kids, I have a 3 and a
right.
5 year old. They're
Yeah.
stuck inside most of the winter, so it's like, don't want to deal with
Hey,
that.
send them to the backyard and run around.
Oh yeah, now we got a backyard, got a
That's
new,
great.
we got a new bulldog, so they're
Oh,
enjoying it.
yeah. What type of bulldog do you have? Is it English?
English, yep,
I have a
English
French.
bulldog. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah. She's over there snoring. So if you hear
yeah,
that,
he's
that's
downstairs
what I'm
snoring.
yeah, they do. Uh, well, tell me about your business. I know we've talked a little bit about what you do, but why don't you tell everyone who's watching about your business and the services you provide?
Yeah, so 44 Risk PM is the name of the business. It comes from actually while I was in the military. I was an instructor on 29 Palms.
Hmm.
My call sign was 44,
Oh, okay.
and I trained Marine Corps units in combat skills before they deployed. So that kind of stuck with me with the 44 Risk PM because I love risk management. It's
Hmm.
kind of like my bread and butter. And 44 because it kind of goes back to that whole I'm not training people for combat, but I'm still looking to train people to go into the
Well, some
world of,
project.
yeah, some projects we can consider that. But
Exactly.
yeah, the goal overall though is, I want to be able to, one of our things was teach, coach, and mentor. So those
Sure.
are kind of my three key areas. I want to be able to teach, coach, and mentor individuals in project management and how to refine and build themselves as also a leader in the field too.
Right. Right. Well, very good. So in your business, you say that you love risk management, have a tendency to risk, and I think that one thing that I see a lot of organizations when I go in to teach or consult that they always go to risk as being a negative. And I'm sure when you're training people for a military experience where you want to be safe, but there's also that idea of a positive risk
Hmm.
and that there's opportunities and risk and reward. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, yeah, we have a negative connotation around risk, but
Yeah.
obviously we keep that positive risk attitude. And it's something I think we naturally do, except when we start talking about risk.
Yeah.
So I try to
Right.
get, when I try to work with people, I try to tell them, like, all right, what good can happen? Just try to get the negative connotation out of it. And then people are like, oh, we talk about this. And you're like, okay, that's a risk.
Exactly.
It's a risk in the right direction. And
Yeah.
so yeah, so sometimes it's just wordsmithing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and same thing in the military when we were doing, our operations. We try to find what are the good things that we can make happen. And
Yeah. Exactly.
that's what exactly what we did. And that's how we also overcame the negatives that can happen as well.
Yeah, I think that is so important. Something says how you wordsmith it. That it's
Yeah.
often not what you say, what you don't say, and it is how you say it, how you frame, what you're after. And it's easy, I think, in project management, especially folks that are maybe newer to project management, or their organization doesn't have a larger risk appetite, where they want to always be safe. They don't want to um, have that fear of loss of time or loss of money, that they lose opportunities, so they miss out on opportunities because we don't consider, like you said, what could happen, and having that balance of risk and reward. I'm not saying you want to go wild and take on every risk, but having that, well, looking at that risk tolerance and positive outcomes that could come about, and thinking, I like to frame things as opportunities, more
Hmm.
than a risk. So I think that's important, especially for people that may be new to project management, that they think that risk is only bad or only has a negative connotation.
Yeah, I think working with people outside of project management, that's probably the harder time you
Right.
take to
Right.
try to
I agree.
explain their whole attitude. Yeah,
Yeah.
using turn. I don't see. I think when I teach it, obviously, I talk about opportunities. I don't see
Hmm.
that outside of it, just because when I'm talking to, again, someone outside of project management, I'm like, opportunities. They're like, it doesn't quite get with them. So I'm like, what good could happen?
Oh, what
That's
good could
why.
happen? I like that.
That's why I like to
Yeah.
say, because like when I say opportunities, it just I don't see the ball rolling as much in outside of project managers.
Yeah. Let's see that gerbil moving up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. I like that. What good could happen? I think that there's, risk has such a direct tie to money and
Hmm.
accountability, and that organizations have to be tend to be a very good steward of funds that are allotted. And so it's that give and take, and looking at, yes, probability and impact, but not just for the negative, but for a positive outcome. And then running testing. I mean, I'm sure you're a big fan of doing some probability testing, or testing on a smaller scale to see what could happen on a larger scale. And you get to some statistical analysis of what are the odds of this really happening, when you're talking with large sums of money or large impacts on the project.
Yeah, no, I just I read a book. I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's the failure of risk management.
Hmm.
And it's actually a great book because the author really jumps into that
Oh,
about
that's great.
how a lot of organizations they jump into the qualitative. They're like,
Mhm.
we're it's really easy. Probability, impact, okay, we're
Right.
gonna put some arbitrary score on there and run
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah.
But he gets into quantitative risk analysis and how it kind of has this people have this thing like it's hard to do, but it's really not.
Right.
Like you can easily do it. You just have to put a little more planning behind it.
Yeah.
But he also goes, he goes, he did like he has numbers in there, statistics of how it can improve your projects even at the lowest level. So it's actually a really good book. It's a long one, so if you're gonna read it, take some time to get into it. But um, yeah, on my blog actually I put a little review of it. So
Oh, good. All
yeah,
right.
so
Yeah.
I
We'll
like I
put
said,
a link to your blog in the comments, so
yeah,
go check
it's like I
it out.
said, it's a great book. And it really challenges project risk management. He calls it out a lot.
Sure.
And they actually have a new book coming out this year I've already pre-ordered it. I don't think it comes out until August, but it's the failure of project risk management. So they go more deep into projects itself.
Very good. I'll check that out. Or we'll put a link into to your blog so folks can go and look at that. I think it's so important. You hit the nail on the head when qualitative. Everyone gets qualitative. It's easy, but yeah, it's an arbitrary score. Often it's kind of a gut feeling, or you get back into that confirmation bias where I don't like
Mm,
that, so I give it a bad, I give it a high probability and a bad risk score, and there may not be a lot of evidence to back that up. Quantitative, I think that our quantitative analysis has to be in proportion to the size and the scope of the project, and that it does take time and it often takes a budget. If you got to test materials or takes time to run a test, if you're in software development or whatever, you've got to test it and learn, and that can not only show you the risk but really helps with planning on how you're going to plan and set that project up for success or to get past that risk hurdle. It's so important to incorporate.
yeah, and I think also it's just a natural thing of like testing the PMP and the RMP. You
Mhm.
can't really test quantitative risk analysis on the exam.
Right, because
You can test qualitative.
sure, yeah,
Therefore, everyone studies that, and then when they get out and they try to do it, they kind of avoid it because there wasn't something they had to study for.
right,
So
right. It's hard to you. Yeah, it's hard to fake it, for a test or a study environment until you
exactly.
actually have a risk. Well, let's talk about the Pure program for people that may be watching. The Pure program is a real world applicable skills training for project managers. You complete the 60 hours of training. You get 60 PDUs if you are a PMI candidate or a PMI certified professional, and then you have to pass an exam, and then you're considered a pure PM. And one of the courses in the program is Russ's course, which you can probably tell deals with risk. So, Russ, tell us a little bit about your course and how it's unique and how it relates to real world project management, real world risk management.
Yeah. So, well, the one I jump into, my kind of like my bread and butter of what I was really excited to kind of jump in with Pure was translating those military skills over
Sure.
into project management.
Okay. Right. Right.
Yeah, because I mean, I go into really everything. My three core functions that I like: project management, risk management, leadership.
Mhm.
And I really work through what the Marine Corps planning process is, which is a derivative of the joint planning process that kind of jumps through all the military services. And when you look through that, you can see, you know, how we as project managers manage projects. It's extremely similar. And then
Mhm.
our leadership traits. If you just take those, you just change a couple words in it. You have great leadership traits and principles for a project manager to take out there. And then same for risk management. The military has a risk management process, and we use a lot of the same terms when it comes to risk opportunities. We're building really qualitative risk analysis. I will say that. Not we talk about quantitative, but when you're in the middle of Afghanistan, at a fob, it's kind of hard to do quantitative. You're really
Right.
just doing qualitative at that point.
Sure.
Um, so, but a lot of our risk management is, I don't know, like, I would be surprised if I can go back and find the people that wrote this doctrine if they didn't talk to some project managers in the meantime, because it is doing this research. It's been like, this is a lot more similar than I thought it would be.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well,
Yeah.
what will people get out of your course that are PMs?
I think one thing they'll get out of it is just some of the nuances that the military puts into our planning process.
Mhm.
Again, the leadership piece, something I think a lot of project managers need to take a little more time and study, because there's this inkling out there that leadership is natural, and it's not. Leadership
Sure.
is something you study and you grow just like anything else.
Right.
So that's what I really wanted to take away is like, you can learn from the military, but at the same time, the military can do project management. there's
Sure.
a thought process out there in the veteran community, like, you know, everyone should get into project management, which I don't preach to military at all. But what I try to tell them is that the military, we have natural skills that we learn over our careers that can put us in project management roles. The only thing is that I want people to know is you kind of got to work with them up front. It's one of those things. It's a little bit more upfront cost. You do a little bit more mentorship with that veteran. You're going to get a lot on the back end
Sure.
because they do have to go through that transitional period of
Right.
this is not this, this is that. Because even when I was studying for the PMP, I remember even sitting for the exam, there was a lot of translating. You know,
Mm.
I read a question, I'm like, okay. And I put it back in the military planning process and I put it back in and then I'm like, okay. And then like that, like, it's just, that's how my mind had to roll. Now it's a few years later, I've dropped a lot more of that military, but like, it's still there
It
because it's the
sticks with you.
core, it's the core of where core of
Sure.
my career. And so I want people to take away that the military comes with a lot more than you probably realize, what
Mm.
they probably realize up front.
Sure. Well, I think that's an important lesson for people who are not that don't have a military background that they can get from your course is this is a mindset that follows a logic that's proven, years of
Mhm.
proven experience that you can take this and use in your environment, that it's applicable, that I can take this way how to lead or how to think or to work with my team to plan, that you can apply it as a PM, even if you don't have a military background, you can learn from that. And I think that's one of the goals we have in everyone's course is we have all these different backgrounds that people bring into the training that I can take these nuggets and fast forward my career a bit by learning from what worked for you that worked in my environment, how do I leverage that and work for me. So I think that's one of the really cool things that you have in your course, especially for folks that don't come from a military environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give someone who wanted to, let's first say from the military and they did want to get into project management?
Oh, and I would say you have a lot more skill than you realize you have.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I try to tell a lot of people. I go, this is a field where you're gonna know more than you probably realize,
Yeah.
and you can make a lot of good impact on just through a lot of that leadership. Like I said, that core of like being able to manage stressful situations and be able to keep your cool. You
Yeah.
don't, a lot of guys I know from the military and girls, like, we're very headstrong, but we're also able to take on a lot
Right.
because we've gone through very stressful situations. You know, the most stressful day for me has been in the past. And I know
Yeah.
it's been in the past. And I know I'll never experience a more stressful day than that.
Me too.
So
Me too. I got married. So,
yeah, I mean that was a beautiful day to me, but
yeah, it's a beautiful. Well, I asked you that question to kind of set you up a little bit there. Two of my best friends are Marines, and they're
no.
both in the IT space, and I've been trying to usher them into And they're like, "Oh, that's so much to learn," and I'm like, "You guys know more than you know. So much of what we do here, I know is relevant, and especially that leadership because they everybody looks up to them as in their both in separate employment, but everyone looks up to their team. I've been at both of their places of work doing training, and I know their teams look to them. It just they just are a leader, and that's so important in project management. This idea of you're instilled as a leader versus having those leadership qualities, and you take on that role. The idea of emergent leadership, I think, is
Mhm.
so important in project management. Not like that I'm in charge as the PM, but that you lead by doing and being being a doer, being decisive, and getting things done.
Yeah, because that's not a thing. I think the course too is you know, I think Hollywood gives us a certain persona,
Yeah,
you know,
sure.
where it doesn't work like that. And
Right.
yeah, so how being, like I said, the emergent leader, just being able to, or the what's the key phrase, the servant leader,
Servant leadership.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's something we really learn in the military because that's what you're doing. You're serving people to are really doing most of the work, to be honest.
Right. Right. That's it's the thing that we talk about. And I was just having a conversation with this gentleman that's a quality engineer, and he was very adamant that, oh no, quality, it comes from the corner office. The guy that it's like, no, the person closest to the work
Hmm.
has the biggest effect on quality. That the guy swinging the hammer can really wreck your project
Yeah.
more than the guy making the plans on how you're going to swing the hammer. So it's I think it's so important, that idea of, I think it's maybe a generational thing too. There was this top-down approach to management and leadership, and that it's really more of a cohesive view of leadership, among your team. And leaders, emerge at different points of the project as well, depending on the work that you're doing, and the ebb
Exactly.
and flow and confidence and so on. Well, what advice would you give to an individual that they're interested in project management? Maybe they don't have a military background, but they like what you're saying, and they're curious, or they think, like maybe your wife or their spouse is going through it. What attributes would you say they should focus on, or advice would you give them that they might want to be a project manager?
Be a sponge, be a learner.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, there's courses out there. There's you know ability to jump on and ask someone to mentor you. I think
yeah,
LinkedIn's great for that. You can find someone out there that's willing to talk to you.
yeah,
Coming out of the military, that's what I did. Someone told me how to do it. I just reach out to people and say, "Hey, you're a project manager. Can we set up a 20-minute call and just talk?" And
yeah.
I literally just ask them like, "What is your experience? What are you looking at?" Type deal. So I think the big thing for me is, I mean, I love learning, so I try to tell people you just got to be able to learn. Just sit back, be open to new ideas,
Yeah.
and be creative in your solutions.
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
you know, yes, you learn from old projects, you take that to the where you're at now, but there's always a new solution to old problems,
Right.
especially in the age of AI
I
and
was
all
just going
that.
to say
Like,
that. Yeah.
yeah, like we're entering a new world where you can think through problems really quicker because you have a buddy who can analyze things quicker than you can.
Right.
So
That's so true.
brainstorming is becoming so easy,
Right.
where
And then you can brainstorm on the results of your brainstorm, and you keep feeding
exactly.
it back in, and you ask for more detail, more precise, or play those what if scenarios. That, I don't know if you've ever done like the Monte Carlo simulation or seen some of that software that does
Hmm.
Monte Carlo. I can just ask AI to do that now. I can plug in the variables and 4 or 5 different risks and say, what's the most likely, what's my mean of these happening, or what's my risk distribution, or what if this one happens, what effect does that have on that one? The
Yeah,
interrelationship of risk is interesting to me.
yeah. I think my wife cracks up at me nowadays because I'll come downstairs and be like, I had a good conversation with ChatGPT today.
Have you
Just like,
named your GPT?
no, I've not named it, but yeah, like she just cracks up because I'm just like, yeah, I'll subject and yeah, I'll just go back and forth. Once you learn how to use it like that, like a
Yeah.
back and forth, kind of just
Mhm.
spitballing ideas with it, it actually really does help.
Truly, it's I've used it so much. I get stumped in writing, or how do I want to craft something.
Hmm.
I feel like, all right, give me 3 talking points if I'm going to write a blog, and then I write the blog, and then I can feed it in there and say, how would you make this better, or how would this be more interesting, or can you add something funnier than me? It never can. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing, but close, right? But it's amazing what it can do. But then you think, well, what risk does Chat GPT introduce? We think about flawed research, or um, there's all of the ethical concerns that come out of, is it plagiarism?
Hmm.
Is it what's the
Just
accuracy, and what's the
yeah,
reliability of what we're getting out of that thing?
which is why, like, yeah, like when it comes to risk management, you gotta follow up with it and can't
right,
take everything it says to you and like it's gold. You just
right.
gotta, like I said, that's why I like to use it for brainstorming. And
Hmm.
then yeah, if I'm writing an article, if I'm doing something, I'll brainstorm, I'll use it, and then I do what I have to do, whether it
Right.
be building a course, building an article, building whatever I'm working on. But
Sure.
yeah, I like to use it, like I said, purely mostly for brainstorming.
I have I have a tendency when I create courses, I like to outline in Excel so I can move stuff around and insert rows and I can make
Mhm.
chunks and sections. And it's always been kind of a headache for me to take that and then put it into PowerPoint to get, my slide, like my main lecture slides. So I just grabbed the text and put it into Chat GPT and I said, I want these to be PowerPoint slides, and I want every other slide to be a black slide that tells me I'm at the end of a lecture. And I want these to be with the title slide and to use this font. And it just did it. It was amazing. And I
Yeah.
just loaded it and opened it, and it was done, ready for me to start creating content. Um, just it's just brilliant. Like that would take an hour to do that manually. And so I think we're seeing this acceleration of tasks. But then, well, what's the downside of that? What's the risk of that? I mean, it's don't you don't need a guy like me, or and then what's that do to project management? I mean, do you think project management will go all AI?
I can't see it because I still think you need that personal side of it.
Right.
Because
I
like I
agree.
said, it'll get you so far. You
Yeah,
still need someone to direct the traffic,
I agree.
type deal. So I think that what I like, what even right now, I use it for like building meeting minutes.
Yeah,
Something that took me, if I had 4 meetings during the day, you're looking at, you know, depending on the length of the meetings and what was going
mhm,
on, you're
yeah,
looking at 4 hours of probably meeting minutes that I have to put together.
right. And you
And
have to use the little voice recorder and then dump it into
yeah, so
yeah,
now
and
it's like, yeah, you use the AI, it builds it, you kind of
right,
go through, edit, like, no, that was me. I said that, not John. You're like, whatever, and you
right,
go through, and then you send it out. Now it takes me an hour to get those 4 meetings. I have 3 hours where I can actually do my job.
do work,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
that's what
totally agree.
that's what I think it's going to help project manager is we're
I
going to
know,
get away from some of those small tasks that kind of just ate up a lot of our time.
right. What I want to see, and I maybe I'm just ignorant of what this can and can't do, but I want to see where I have a list of activities. So I put my scope in and say, what's the work that I have to do? What's the most logical flow of this with these resources? And have it spit out a Gantt chart or a network diagram for me. Then I'll be pretty impressed.
I think
Um,
there's programs out there that can slightly do that.
yeah,
But I think it's still time consuming on top of the fact that you got to input all the data.
right. Yeah.
So yeah, so
It's
I think we're moving in the right direction now.
yeah. Anything that's repetitive. Remember, like the first time you used a macro, your mind was blown away.
Oh yeah.
That's kind of how I look at this. Like it's a really really cool macro, or beyond a macro even. Some of the programming that I'm able to squeeze out of it with a little bit of knowledge. Like I don't know what
Mhm.
it's writing, but it works, and able to grab that and use it. I mean, it is pretty amazing. I think that with big data sets, that's where it's going to get fascinating, where
Yeah.
we're going to want to analyze that, or it may speed up some of that quantitative analysis where we have big data to dump into an engine somewhere and see what's the overall mean or probability or the risk distribution, I should say, of our project. Could be
Yeah, I
interesting.
think like I say, yeah, I think it's gonna help with analyzing information, spitting things out quicker. But you
Right,
still need that human on the one side of it, collecting and putting it all in there.
right, right. But to take that into package that in a way that's digestible is I think it's a really good thing. And just like we were talking
Mhm.
about, to speed up those minutes, or creating slides or whatever, gives me better use of my time. Back to that 80-20 principle of 20% of my time is where I really get the sweet stuff done. So how do I do more of this profitable stuff in that
Yeah.
sliver? Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the Pure program and why you decided to get involved and what you want to see come out of Pure.
No, for me, it was just when you reached out and you said something about, this course, and then we started talking about it. To me, it was great because I would still consider myself new to this whole teaching project management space.
But that's
And
okay. I don't want I'm a teacher. I want guys like you that are in the field doing it.
yeah,
That's where the good stuff is.
well, yeah, but in the field, I'm still, I'm a practitioner of project management,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm also working on trying to teach a little more, like I said, the teach coaching mentoring.
Yeah.
But I kind of didn't know where to start. So when,
Yeah.
working with you and in the Pure team, I was able to actually take a lot of more lessons learned just for myself on how to do this type deal. But it was also, some of the things you talked about where, project management and a lot of the education out there right now is so theoretical,
Yeah.
where, you want something where I can watch and turn and go do something with it.
Right.
In or it's not the same thing. Uh,
Yeah.
because a lot of times you sit down and you're like, it's just the same information over and over because a lot of people are teaching what's out of, specific guides and all that.
Right.
Whereas this is, hey, we're talking about how to do the work
Yeah.
and
Exactly.
how we have been doing it. And you're getting some leadership from him, you're getting leadership from her, you're getting leadership from me. So you're seeing it in multiple different ways of how we apply it to our projects in our life. And once I started seeing the team that was there and starting to hear about the mission of what it was we're trying to do, I was like, yeah, this is something I'm going to be a part of.
Well, I followed you for a while on LinkedIn. I know we hadn't talked a whole lot until we got involved with the project, and man, I loved your background because I said I've got these two guys that are Marines that I'm telling them all the time, and that they do project management. They have that
Mhm.
experience, but I think that's very important. But what I also liked is that you're doing this stuff. You're not just talking about it. It's like you're doing it, and that's one of the problems we have in the project management education space is it's like we all have the same book. If we're
Mhm.
teaching towards the PMP, I don't have some big secret in my class that somebody else doesn't have in theirs. We all have the same books. We all have the same exam content outline. And it's just a preference of who you want to learn from. And, my background has always been in teaching, in consulting, and writing. And so I'm very lucky. I mean, I can talk for hours, Um, but there's a difference, and I readily admit there's a difference between talking about doing something, and actually doing it. So it's just like golf. You can read a book on golf and you can
Yeah.
talk about golf, but until you actually take the swing and try to hit that ball, it's totally different. The theory goes out the window, but over time you can like, oh, I understand the theory now and how it's applied. And that was one of my big goals for Pure was let's find not necessarily the people that are like me that talk for a living. Let's find people that their full-time gig is doing this stuff, and then how can that person help others? How can we leverage?
Yeah.
And it's almost like the information I wish I had when I started as a PM. We have all these big brothers and big sisters, if you will, that are like, hey, here's how you really do it. Or it's a whole host of mentors on very specific topics, like,
Mhm.
like your topics of how this works where I work, this might work where you work. But they've got proven experience. So that was, the big goal with Pure is not just to teach another PM class, but to really have a way, like you said, that I can take this course and then let me go apply it and do it. And so
Yeah.
I'm thrilled you're involved with your background and and what you're doing. So,
No, I'm excited to be here, and it's a great opportunity to kind of, even going through and listening to other people's courses, I'm learning things. So
oh, absolutely,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. There's just always some great ideas and to see what others are doing and how can
Hmm.
you apply that. And it is all of your background and what you're doing, but also the beard had a lot to do with it. Why I wanted you involved. Yeah, I'm a little
Yeah,
jealous.
I like my beard. I had to try it out. I had to try it out when I got out of the military. You know,
Hey,
20 years of shaving every day. And
wow. You
so
started shaving, you were like 5.
oh yeah, yeah. No, I'm close to 40. So but so yeah, so but I grew the beard out. My wife was, you know, after a couple months, she just looked at me one day, she goes, I like it.
Oh,
And I
okay,
said,
good.
all right.
Yeah,
So it's sticking around.
good, good for you. Well, let's wrap this up and talk a little bit about just some. I like to end these with a little bit of advice that you would give any project manager to make their project better.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I
good
was,
question.
yeah, it's a good question. Any project manager to make their project better.
What's something they could do just taking from this webinar and go and apply in their life or in their projects to
Yeah.
make things better?
Well, I'd have to go with what I kind of tell a lot of people. You know, if you look at my whole thing, I think it says right here on my shirt, proactive over reactive.
Mm,
I started saying that in the military when it came to our planning, especially at your tactical level. You know, the more proactive you are with your planning, the less reactive you have to be. So I
mm,
always say, just think about the mantra proactive over reactive. And
yeah,
when you take it into your projects, same thing. That, you know, looking at risk management, proactively take the time. Yep, it might take an extra week of planning, but you're going to be less reactive in the future when you do have those risks that or issues that pop up. You know, so be proactive, less reactive, and your life's going to be a lot easier.
that's fantastic. I'm going to have Adam make the thumbnail uh, proactive over reactive. I have a friend that she is a business coach who we've been having some talks lately, and one of the things that she left me with is people that plan tend to do better than those who don't. Um,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of the same idea of and then to take action on those plans. So important.
Yeah, planning, you know, and
Yeah,
like I say in the course, I have the quotes out there about, you know, you plan now, so so that way you can survive in the future because
yeah,
it doesn't, you know, going into things willy nilly sounds fun sometimes, but never ends well.
yeah. Projects fail at the beginning, not the end.
Exactly.
All those quotes exist for a reason.
Exactly.
Well, Russ, I'm so happy you found time to come talk with me about your background and your business in Pure. One more time, what is your website if people want to connect with you?
It's 44riskpm.com, and that's the number 44riskpm.
Great, great. Well, thank you for your time and for being involved with Pure. I'm really honored that you accepted the invite, and I think you add a lot of value to people's lives. If you'd like to learn more about Russ, visit his blog. If you want to visit puremanagementalliance.com, you can find out about Pure. We have a free 1 hour course, no obligation to buy, but you can check it out and learn about the program and this framework that we've created, this mindset we've created in Pure. Thank you for your time and look for future webinars here and on LinkedIn and wherever you watch videos online. So thank you very much for your time and attention. And Russ, thank you.
Thank you.